Hello and welcome to another edition of the Moving Iron Podcast. This podcast is proudly provided by Axon, helping dealers move more iron for almost 100 years. Find out more at axontire.com. Axon was started almost 100 years ago out of a passion for keeping agriculture moving. It's that same passion that drives them today. With a vision for a better experience for both farmer and dealer, they set out to create a better way to move more iron. When you partner with Axon, you get immediate access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. Axon carries all major brands and sizes of tires, wheels, and tracks. From custom colors and sizes to fully customized wheels, you can have the solution for virtually any problem today's farmer is trying to solve. To find more or become an Axon dealer, please visit axontire.com.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast Markets with Chip Nellinger. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Axon Tire, helping dealers move more iron for the past 100 years. And since harvest is just around the corner, get yourself a 3% discount on Alliance combine tires and rims for the month of June for any Moving Iron Podcast listeners. So take full advantage of that, folks. Also, TractorZoom delivering insights. If you're looking to see what's going on in the auction market, which right now is the best time to pay attention to what's going on in any kind of market, especially the auction market, use Moving Iron at checkout when you look at iron comps, and you get yourself another discount. So I have Chip Nellinger here from agmarkets with us, and he's nice enough to come on once a week to talk about what's going on. It's been a little bit, though, between his schedule and my schedule. We've had a rough couple weeks here trying to get hooked up, but we finally got back together here. So, Chip, how you been, man?
Well, been doing well. These markets are starting to get crazy, so it's prime time we chat again, because we're right in the middle of very uncertain weather, and the markets are really flying all over the place now.
Yeah, so flying all over the place is a understatement, because so we had a couple of weeks here. The first part of May, we had a couple of weeks where there's some profit taking that kind of turned into some kind of bearish news, and they were kind of selling back in. You know, corn came off about $1.50 or so. Then over the last couple of weeks here, we've seen some runs up and runs downs, and 40-cent swings and days, and even yesterday there was a 13 to 15-cent swing, actually a 30-cent swing in the overall intraday volatility. So this volatility thing that we've been talking about is really ramping up and really starting to kind of show its ugly side here.
It is, and it's really kind of the perfect storm brewing. We've got huge demand, we've got tight stocks, and now, which raises the bar that to a high level that we have to raise a big crop this year. And now we've got, the makings of a real weather problem in the Dakotas right now, potentially expanding a little bit. And some of that volatility yesterday, you mentioned, I think we had like a 33 or 34 cent range in corn, and I think almost 60 cents in beans. And it's weather model driven. And, some of the midday weather model runs added some rain and some cooler temperatures a week and a half out for the Dakotas. And then here overnight, the European model, which has been more accurate recently, kept things very hot, very dry in the extended forecast. And so we put most of what we lost yesterday put back on to corn and beans in the overnight because of that drier model. So, there's going to be more of this and probably wilder swings as we get deeper into June and July. But the bullseye right now is the northern plains, the Dakotas, and it doesn't stop there. It really extends up into the Canadian prairies. And, they raise a lot of spring wheat, canola, some soybeans up there. And so it's, I guess, multinational, crosses the border, and extremely dry weather up there. You have reports of, farmers that have replanted some corn and beans that may not come up, that need to replant some stuff due to some frost issues, and getting a little bit too late, but probably not enough moisture in the ground to do that. So it is a real problem there. They need rain very quickly. People up there feel like they don't matter in the big scheme of things, but they really do, because of the extra acreage that was planted up there this year and the tightness of stocks. I think I read something here a few weeks back that the Dakotas produce about 10% of the total corn crop, and I think 12 or 13% of the total bean crop. And so every bushel matters this year, as tight as it is, and all eyes are on the Dakotas and their weather situation right now.
Yes, this weather thing is starting to creep up. I know there's some areas that have gotten a lot of rain. Out where I'm at right now, I mean, we've gotten some rains. Things are good and green. It looks nice, but there's not a lot of soil profile there, water profile in the soil, and so these next 3 or 4 days here, where we've got some 90 plus degree temperatures and some wind, it won't take long to dry that out, and we'll start seeing things kind of go sideways. Obviously, we're irrigated, but there's only so much that you can irrigate before you run out of your water allotment and those kind of things. So I guess, Chip, wheat harvest is going on right now. We got the custom run started. They're halfway through Oklahoma, working their way into Kansas. And I guess as you take a look at that wheat market and some of the customers you've talked with, what are you hearing about the bushels coming out of Oklahoma, Texas, and as they kind of ease into Kansas a little bit here? What are you hearing about that? And then right now I'm seeing like overnight spring wheat was up 11 to 12 cents. A lot of that has to do with the drought situation, but are the bushels there that we've talked about? Are the bushels there from what what we've seen from these crop tours and those kind of things?
Yeah, it seems like that they are, and I think going back to this winter, it's amazing just how cold for how long it was that the wheat crop made it through that, and I think something that helped were some really beneficial rains, in those areas, the Texas Panhandle up through Oklahoma and Kansas. Really unseasonable, if that's the word, but unusual amounts of rain at perfect time for that crop development. So I think that added some bushels to that crop. And this is normally a time of year where the wheat market has a hard time going higher because of harvest, right? And the supply is there, and farmers selling right off the combine. And so wheat is a follower, but it's been going up as well because of the spring wheat situation. Obviously, the Dakotas, Montana, Canadian prairies that are so dry right now raise a lot of spring wheat. So the spring wheat crop prices have just skyrocketed, and that's in addition to corn, and that's helped drag Chicago and Kansas City wheat higher as well. And might be that perfect opportunity here. We've had big swings that allows these producers that normally not everyone does, but there's not a lot of storage out in that part of the Southern Plains, and so a lot of wheat is sold right off the combine, and so we've got a nice little rally here that is kind of helping benefit maybe the pocketbook of those wheat farmers that do sell right off the combine and haven't forward contracted yet. So it's been a little bit of a windfall from that aspect, as spring wheat prices have helped drag Kansas City and Chicago wheat higher.
All right, let's jump down here and let's talk about this cyber attack from JBS. So it looks like everything's back up and running from May 30th attack, but that's still, there's still another, who knows how long before they get back to the full swing of production. So talk about the cattle market we see there, and then, how is this going to really, is this another Tyson fire type thing, or is this going to be something that's not going to be nearly as bad as that situation?
Well, I don't think it's going to be as bad, assuming that they're past that and they do get back to full swing here. And some of the news has been less than crystal clear, right? I mean, it's hard to get a real handle on that, but it does appear that they're slowly getting back at it. So if that's past us, I don't think it's as bad as the Tyson fire. The cattle market was struggling anyway with some capacity issues and labor issues, and getting the efficiency there that we've had in the past, and getting cattle through the system and onto the chains there. And so this didn't help the cause any. It shot box beef higher. It did probably help drag the cash cattle market higher this week. I do think that seasonally you normally start seeing, and we have seen weights come down a little bit, and you'll continue to see that into summer, and that'll help. And I think the numbers, the sheer numbers of cattle will shrink as well. We're getting past some of these big numbers, and that'll help. But we still got some issues there as far as the labor. It's not just restaurants and that industry that can't find people to work. It's across the entire economy, and the packing industry is feeling that as well, and they're having a hard time running at 100% capacity right now. Yeah. And that's kind of a double whammy, because we've had a big number of heavy cattle, and so it's hard to get that through the system. But I think we're towards the end of that. Hopefully this JBS thing is a one-off, and they're behind that and get back to normal there. And if that's the case, it should just be a little blip, and take by this time next week probably be in the rearview mirror and back to normal, so to speak. So let's hope that's the case. But it's been a little bit murky getting the all the news and details and information from that sector. So let's hope they've got that fixed and aren't still battling that ransomware, cyber attack, whatever that was.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing too, pork prices are slowly starting to move up a little bit. Hog prices have kind of stayed in a pretty attractive range here of late. So talking about the pork market we see happening there.
Yeah. So that's its own bull market, right? I mean, that goes back a year and a half too, where during the COVID shutdown and the issues the packing plants had then during the closures, it really caused a lot of liquidation of both market-ready animals as well as sows being liquidated. And now you got big demand by China's been there as massive buyer for many months, and at a time when supply is shrinking, and you see the effects of that. Supply and demand work if you let it. And so we're seeing high-priced hogs here, and I do think we're maybe getting past some of our own, some of the PRRS issues that we had, some of our own health issues here domestically. Guys that I've talked to, the pigs per litter seems to have taken a run higher here. So point being, I think there's an old saying, the cure for high prices is high prices, right? And the cure for low prices is low prices. What that means is low prices take away production, and if demand is steady, then prices rise. As prices rise to high levels, and we're not at record all-time highs, but we're within shouting distance. We're trading here just under 120 in the hogs. All-time highs have been, I think, in the mid 130s. So relatively speaking, we're in the upper 90 some percentile of all-time high prices. So what that's going to do is stimulate extra production, right? And I think you're starting to see that. So we still probably have 6-8 weeks of prime demand time ahead of us. Normally in a normal year, throw out COVID, July, August is kind of the peak in grilling and meat demand here domestically, and then you kind of see prices peak in hogs and head back down into fall with increasing production. This might be thrown off a little bit because of the way we're reopening and all the COVID issues here with states reopening and the vaccine, and just seems like that's kind of, we're getting past some of that stuff, and so that might extend that demand a little bit. But you have to be on the lookout here with these higher prices. It will eventually, and probably likely already has, started increasing production. I think we're past some of the health issues. pigs per litter going up. And, I think from a risk management standpoint, hog producers really have to look at these deferreds and really start thinking about getting a little more aggressive here at some point in the very near future. They never ring a bell and tell you, hey, this is the top, right? And prices break and you get lulled into thinking, we've seen this break before and we're going to be back into new highs again. And when the top comes, it doesn't. It takes people by surprise. And I think you're getting closer and closer to that. But that's been the one bright spot of the, livestock industry has been the hog market. And it's been a real benefit to hog producers. They have been beat up for several years and really weren't in really good shape. So this has really been a breath of fresh air for that industry.
Yeah. Yes, it has. We've seen a sustained amount of profitability here that you haven't seen for some while. All right, so let's talk about last thing here, and we'll kind of wrap it up with this. So Brazil is, I don't know the best way to put it. I mean, yeah, they've had some rains and they've had some things happen, but there's still some dryness down there that they've talked about. And about every week they come out with a new forecast, and some private estimates have come out, and every week they're a little bit lower than they were the week before. So how is that going to start? Is that Brazilian market plus coupled with what we got up here? I mean, is that really, how much of that Brazilian crop is factored into what we're seeing happening up here right now as far as the volatility goes? And also, is the volatility that we see now is primarily just based around kind of the weather situation we've seen in the U.S.?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And when it comes to weather, and whether that's Brazil or here, it's really hard to know what the market is digesting and what crop size the market's trading. And so at the previous highs, here a month back when we were, 630 or 40 new crop corn futures, some of that rally was the Brazil drought. And so it's hard to know exactly, right? I think the market was trading somewhere in the mid 90 million ton range, maybe low 90 million metric ton range. That would seem to be where some of the lowest estimates were. Now, earlier this week, StoneX, the brokerage group here, they're based out of Des Moines. They have a big office in Kansas City as well, but they have offices actually and people on the ground in Brazil. And they were the first private estimate that I've seen publicly come in under 90 million tons. They were like 89.6. I'm not so sure that the market was trading that low of a number. I think that helped, in addition to the dry Dakota forecast, to kind of shoot corn prices higher this week. And so we're going to get an update next week with the USDA June crop report. And so the market will be watching that. So that the Brazil crop, the ultimate size of that crop, still is going to matter, and it's going to be something that plays into things here. If they end up sub 90, I would think that really kind of limits the downside a little bit. But then it transitions to our crop, and then our crop will take on more importance, right? If it stays just bone dry in the Dakotas and they're going to burn up, I mean, it's supposed to be 100 degrees there in some areas of the Dakotas here. Today and this coming weekend. So it's not just a scare. I mean, it's a real deal for those guys in the Dakotas. If that continues through the rest of June, we got some bigger issues because not only do we have to pick up the shortfall from the Brazil crop, but we may be producing our own little bit of a shortfall here in the Northwest Corn Belt. And so as you get in deeper into June and first half of July, our weather will really dictate things. And, some of the volatility we've seen may look pale compared to what we could see as these forecasts change. And there's so many different weather models, and it just happens every year. It's happening right now. One has rain, one has bone dry and high temperatures. So they run those weather models at different times of the day. So they come out and, causes this big volatility when one has rain and you break corn, 30 cents off the highs, and then overnight take the rain back out on the next weather model run, and you rally 30 cents, and so you're going to see more and more of that. The ultimate size of our crop and the precipitation patterns of the next 40 to 60 days really is going to be the difference between seeing corn back $4.50 or $5, or seeing corn north of $7, and either of those is possible, and maybe both, unfortunately, depending on
the day,
the forecast and the weather.
Yeah. It's crazy times right now. I mean, across the board, everything is just crazy, and whether it's supply issues or weather or whatever it is, man, there's just a million variables that are plugging in there. And to couple all that, since Monday was a holiday, today they have the export report that comes out. Is there really that much grain left in the U.S. and South America to really pay attention to what's happening with the export report right now?
Well, that's the key. I mean, the old crop basis contract or basis levels in soybeans would tell you there's not a lot left here of old crop supplies. Historically, in the southern hemisphere, Brazil especially, within the next 30, 45 days, you're typically running out of their production. They're pretty aggressive at getting that, sent into the export channels and export it out of the country. And historically, within the next month or so, that dwindles. Obviously, they're going to have a second crop of corn that they're going to harvest here pretty quickly, but that's been hit by drought, and so those supplies will be down. So the rest of the summer gets very dynamic. We haven't, for a couple of weeks, sold at least any daily sales announcements to China. They were such a massive buyer here recently of corn. They've slowed down a little bit. So, I think the export sales report probably are going to slow down a little bit. They haven't been really big from an old crop perspective anyway. We're already essentially at 100% of the USDA projections already. So any additional old crop exports really are just cutting into carryout at this point. And I think the weather will trump that, right? I wouldn't be surprised if the next couple of weeks the export reports are a little anemic, but the weather will trump that. And so I think it's probably less about exports the next 2 or 3 weeks than it is about whether we're going to see normal rainfall start to develop, or at least some rain in the Dakotas and the dry areas of the Western Corn Belt. And we're getting what we need over here. We've been very rainy. I mean, we for a month really didn't have much sunshine, and we've turned the corner. We're mid 80s sunshine, and that's what our crop needs. We've got a really good start here, but there's a long way to go too. And corn's only ankle high, so we've got a long growing season ahead of us here, and Mother Nature better cooperate, or we've got some bigger issues, because that demand base is big. There's just so many moving parts there as well. World vegetable oil prices are skyrocketing, and soy oil hit all-time highs earlier this week. Palm oil, canola oil. It's really there's just no margin for error with the demand that we have. We have to raise big crops, and it's critical we do that. And so the next 60 days are going to be a wild ride, Casey.
Yes, they are. It's a wild ride in about every segment of the economy, it feels like right now. So there's plenty of good stuff going on across the board. So Chip, right now is a perfect example of what that plan needs to be and what that plan needs to look like. And if folks are working on that, what's the best way to get a hold of you to talk about what they have planned and kind of some punch-out points and some things to be aware of?
Yeah, the best way is just give me a call at the office. It's 309-550-7213. You mentioned it. You got to have a plan, and there's some crazy things happening, not just in ag, but, like you mentioned, the entire economy. Things have changed, and it's more critical than ever to have that plan and execute on it. So.
Yeah. Even on the outside markets, if you look at the intraday volatility of just the stock market, I mean, it's crazy too. And, the swings in the dollar and all those different things. And the latest report coming out of whatever government agency that has to do with, whether it's housing or employment or whatever it might be. I mean, there's just lots and lots of volatility just flat across the board. And it's just, even in farm equipment, I track the amount of equipment that gets sold month over month, and the amount of volatility within that's even crazy. So there's just a lot of crazy things going on right now when it comes to volatility.
It sure is. Sure is. Fun times, but stressful times. At least it's we've got profitability back in agriculture now, but that doesn't make it any easier to capture that profitability. You want to get all you can and not leave it on the table. And there's ways to do that, but it takes a plan and it takes executing that plan. And some people have said it's more stressful with high prices now and the volatility than what they felt with low prices. At least everybody was in the same boat and it wasn't profitable and prices were depressed, but some people are finding this environment more stressful than a low price environment.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, good stuff as usual, Chip. Thanks for being on the podcast, man.
Hey, no problem. Get ready for some fun and games this next week, because I think this weather forecast next week is really going to be even more important than what we've seen this week. And so next week's podcast could be another wild one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. So, well, I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Make sure you check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where you're going to find the latest editions of the Moving Iron Podcast. Also, go to MovingIronLLC.com. That's where you find the entire Moving Iron Podcast library, as well as podcasts, as well as blog posts that I have posted there as well. Also, get all the information for the Moving Iron Summit coming up in Nashville, Tennessee, September 17th or 15th through the 17th. It's right downtown there at the Renaissance Hotel, right there off Broadway. A lot of great speakers, a lot of good information there. So make sure you check that out. So with that, I am Casey Seymour with Chip Nellinger from Blue Leaf Ag Marketing. Let's go do some iron, folks. Out. You want to have a meaningful competitive advantage to help sell more equipment. Whether you represent the sales, parts, or management department of an implement dealership, there's a surprising amount of complexity when it comes to tire, wheel, and track technology. Let Axon worry about that so you can get back to supporting your customers. Axon has leveraged years of experience to create a streamlined process that gives you a proven path to help today's grower and sell more equipment. The roots of their organization go back almost 100 years to the invention of the rubber tractor tire. Supporting agriculture is the number one driver of Axon, from product development through sales and service. To find more or become an Axon dealer, head over to axontire.com.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people